through the COVID-19 pandemic. Tonight we have as our guest speaker, Mr. Gregory Bryan. Mr. Gregory Bryan, he is a branch manager at Suffolk Federal Credit Union in the Islandia office. He has a wealth of experience working with small businesses, and he'll share that information with you. But one of the things I wanted him to discuss today is his experience as a banker. For the most part, my experience has been when most people want to start a business, the first place they go to is a bank to get a loan, right? And they seem to believe that since banks lend money and they need money, the bank should give it to them, right? And they forget that banks are for-profit institutions. And so there's certain things that they look for in a business before they lend them the money. And so there's some businesses who do things well when they present themselves to the bank. And there's some businesses that present themselves not so well. And so I just want you to have experience talking to a banker as to how he sees things and give you his advice as to some of the things that you should do to prepare yourself in the event you need a loan. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. He's going to give a presentation, and then once his presentation is complete, then we'll do question and answers, okay? So I'd like to welcome Mr. Gregory Bryan to our webinar. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Oh, you on mute?
All right, very good.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, so first I want to say thank you for the invitation. I'm very impressed at what you guys do, and I'm happy to help. You can see my bio right there on the screen. I've had over 20 years experience helping businesses find solutions that save them time and money. And today is just, I would like it to be interactive and engaging, but I want to give you some good information.
Can I break 1 second? Jay, can you hit the record button? It's going to be recorded.
It's recorded, yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So there's going to be a topical overview, and I want it to be engaging and interactive, and hopefully you'll get some points that you could take away and share with somebody else, okay? So we know where we are right now. We are in 2020, right? And a lot of us are asking ourselves where to go, not just professionally, but also with our businesses. Where do we want to go next, right? And if you look at the slide, you see this guy, his head is hurting him, it looks like, and he has a lot of choices, he has a lot of decisions, and this is the point that we're all at right now, right? And this slide that you're looking at is just talking about the principles of how to change, right? So how to be successful. So we all in some form at point of our day or in our lives have gone through each and every one of these steps. You know, where you say, I don't do something, I can't do something, I want to do something, how can I do something, I'm going to try, I can do it, and I did it. So I believe the reason why everybody's here tonight is because we're in that stage of how can I do it, or you're trying to do it, and you're looking for ways to be successful. I just want to encourage you that you are able to be successful with everything, even in this upside down world where we're learning how to adjust. This Zoom meeting a couple of years ago, it may not have happened just like this, but we're learning and we're adapting. And it's important as a business owner that you adapt and that we change with the times. So I'm going to start with my presentation, and you're probably looking at this and you're probably saying, why is there cheese on the screen, right? And there's an important book that I would encourage and implore everybody, if you haven't read it, to go and read it. It's a book called Who Moved My Cheese, right? And you may be saying, how does this affect me and my business, right? So we all have a goal that we want, whether it be personally or whether it be for our business, right? So some people want to have nice cars, some people want to have nice houses, some people just want their business to get to a point where it's self-sufficient and it's running on its own, right? So with everything that happened, I want to just tell you the little story about Who Moved My Cheese. And it's a story about two mice, and two little people. And it starts off where there's two mices named Him and Haw, where all the mice, they have, they're used to getting cheese, right? They get up in the morning, they have cheese, that's their goal, to have cheese. And what ends up happening is something comes along and someone moves their cheese. So what are you gonna do? How are you gonna be successful? So that's what 2020, that's what happened in 2020, right? We had a lot of plans we started the year with, and you had a lot of goals. And then what happened? You had things like COVID that happened. You had things like the shutdown that happened. You had things that loss of clients. You had the economic downturn. A lot of these things happened and it took us by surprise. But what we have to do, and we have to make adjustments. So in this story about Him and Haw, what ended up happening is when their cheese was moved, they ended up complaining. And there was two other little people called Scratch and Sniff, where basically when their cheese was moved, they would get up in the morning and they would try to find where their cheese is at. So to the business owners today, I'm just telling you that things may look different from what you expected or what your business plan has, but you have to make adjustments. And in the story, the two little people were able to find their cheese, and they were able to reach their goal because they were able to move around. So that's a quick synopsis of the story. But at the end of the day, I just want you to ask yourself these two questions. Are you like Sniff and Scurry? They represent part of us that are simple and instinctive, and Hem and Haw are the little people representing those complex parts of us as human beings, right? So with everything that's going on, it's easy to feel fear and to feel worry, but it says sometimes we are like Sniff, who anticipate change early by sniffing it out, or Scurry, who quickly scurries into action and adapts, or we are more like Hem, who denies change and resists it out of fear, or Haw, who learns to adapt in time when he sees something better. So my question to you is, which character are you like, or which character are you going to be like? So Sniff is important. He represents something because we have as business owners, we have to try to sniff out change and see how the business environment is changing, right? Scurry moves it quickly into action. Some of us are very intuitive, where if something happens, we're looking for a way to fix it, right? Haw, some of us are also like Haw, where things are happening with our business and we're just complaining about it. But we need to try to adapt. And Hem is someone who denies that anything is going on and just does business as usual. So, in what we're going to be talking about is important. I want to set you guys up to understand how banks look and determine if they're going to give you a loan or not. So I want to go over some topics, and we'll go over it in the course of the night. And the first topic is something called the 5 C's of credit. And we're going to break it down. We're going to go step by step. I actually feel like I'm speeding through a little bit, so I want to slow down. And if anybody has any questions over the next slide, I guess there's a feature where you could raise your hand and ask the questions. Or if you have a comment that's relevant to what we talked about, please let us know. So the first thing that banks look at is character. And it's used to measure how trustworthy and reliable you are as a borrower. Generally, lenders will evaluate your credit score, credit history, bankruptcies, foreclosures, and judgments, and how you handled your debt obligation. So one important factor in all of this for banks to determine a character when we've never known you or met you or haven't had interactions with you is to look at your credit score. So I'm going to go to the next slide. And I get excited about slides a little bit. Yeah, I like that little spinning thing that just happened. That spinning thing kind of represents the credit cycle. So initially you would open up new credit, or and then the lenders enter into update the records that you from the new credit that you have. Then the lenders share your information and update your records. Then the credit agencies update and share their reports. So when you get a credit card or when you take out a loan, it starts a cycle of, of what happened, how are you handling the credit that was extended to you. And this helps banks determine a little glimpse into your character, okay? And this is very important for you. Managing your credit score as a business owner is very, very important because not just for your business, but also in your personal life. So this is a chart that I put together probably many years ago. I need to update some of the interest rates, but I want you to get a look at to see how your credit score affects your real world dollars, right? So if you look at it, there's a scoring breakdown on the left-hand side where it says the FICO score. If you have a FICO score of 720, 850 in this scenario, say your interest rate was 5.884, your monthly payment on a $450,000 loan, your monthly payment would be $2,665, and the total interest you would end up paying at the end of that loan would be $509,223, right? So now let's go to the flip side. If your credit score is not that strong and you went in to get a loan, the banks are going to price the loan out based on risk. So the banks tend to feel that if you have a lower credit score, that there's a higher inherent risk that they may not get paid. So as a result, you get a higher interest rate is typically passed on to you as a consumer. So in that same scenario, the interest rate would be about 13.988 and your monthly payment will be about 5,328. If you notice, that's a big difference from the person with the premium credit score to over here. And then the total interest that you would end up paying in the overall life of the loan is a lot higher than if you would have had a better credit score. And the same thing is going to apply. It's going to apply to mortgages. It's going to apply to lending. It's going to apply to auto loans. It's going to apply to credit cards. It's going to apply to your business loans. So it's important that we. I'm sorry, is there a question?
Down here you have your balance sheet.
Say that again. Say that again.
Is that background noise or is that a question? I think that's background noise.
Oh, is that background noise? Okay, very good. So I'm going to move on. I thought that was a question.
Okay.
So a person will end up paying a lot more in the long run. So it's important that we try to get that in order, okay? And I'm going to give you some tips. When you look at this slide, you see it looks like this guy, he's almost literally drowning in debt from the picture, right? And I just want to give you some tips in case you are drowning in debt. I want to give you some tips on how to get out. As a business owner, it's important that you always monitor your personal credit score because you may not be in the need for lending right now, but in the future, you may be in a position where you want to get a loan in regards to your business to help grow your business, to help expand your business. And it's important that your personal credit score is good because that goes to your character and your ability to repay back a loan. So I'm going to give some tips right now in regards to payment history tips. I want everybody to be financially healthy, right? So 1, pay your bills on time. Delinquent payments and collections can have a major negative impact on your FICO score. 2, if you have missed payments, get current and stay current. The longer you pay your bills on time, the better your credit score. And 3, be aware that paying off a collection account will not remove it from your credit report. It will stay in your report for 7 years. And 4, if you are having trouble making ends meet, contact your creditors or see a legitimate credit counselor. This won't improve your credit score immediately, but if you can begin to manage your credit and pay on time, your score will get better over time. And I just want to encourage everybody, sometimes people feel that your credit score is so bad, but if you take some of these steps and you approach it as, I want to get better and I have to do what I need to do to get better, you are able to recover. I've seen over the years people recover from bankruptcies. I've seen people recover from bad errors in decisions. You know, that family member or friend who wanted you to co-sign for that car or for that thing, and it ended up putting you in hot water over your credit. I just want you to know you are able to recover. You are able to rebound, but it's just going to take some steps that you have to take on your own to make that happen.
I have a question, Greg. You said see a legitimate credit counselor.
Yes.
Can you go talk about like maybe what an illegitimate credit counselor looks like?
Okay, so very good. So there are credit counselors who will, first of all, charge you high fees to do items or do things in your credit report that you could do yourself. I've seen some predatory examples of credit counselors who will come along and say, well, if you pay me $500 or you pay me $2,000, I'll be able to clear up all your credit, everything in your credit. Even legitimate items that you legitimately did and trouble that you legitimately got yourself into, they sell you a dream where they say, well, we'll just make everything disappear. Give us $2,000, give us $5,000, and we'll make it disappear. And that is not the way to go, because a lot of times these companies are fly-by-nights. They'll take your money and then they'll disappear, and you won't be able to get your money back. And you'll end up, a lot of times, oftentimes, your credit is worse than the state that it was in before you started. Some of these guys will also, in order to get some of your creditors off, what they will do is they'll end up not paying. They'll make you sign a letter saying that they basically have the ability to talk to creditors on your behalf. Then what they end up doing is they go to creditors and they say, well, Miss Gordon or Miss Harvey, they are not going to pay you for 5 months. And then after 5 months go by, they'll go to the creditors and say, well, listen, you're not getting any money from them. Yet they're going to go in default. So if they owe you $4,000, how about we give you $1,000 and make it go away? But it ends up hurting you in the long run in regards to your credit. So just be leery of anybody. If it's oftentimes if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is too good to be true. Is that good?
So now what if so you're saying that they're charging you to do things that you could do yourself. So
Yes.
what if you have something on your credit report and you want to get it off? How do you go about doing that?
Sure, there's some steps that you can take. Whereas if it's something that is legitimate, it's legitimate. But a lot of times you'll see errors sometimes in reporting on the credit on your credit report. So it's good every year, to at least once a year, to just pull your credit report. The federal government recommends annualcreditreport.com, and you pull it from there. And then what you're able to do is you're able to see your credit history. And if there's something that is wrong, if there's a payment that you know you paid, then you have the ability to dispute it. When you dispute it, you have to dispute it not just with one credit bureau. You want to dispute it with, make sure you dispute it with all 3 bureaus. Because oftentimes if something is on one report, say if it's on TransUnion. So let me explain. There's 3 credit reporting bureaus: TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. These are the 3 main bureaus. So if you're going to get something, if you're going to dispute something on one, you should dispute it on all.
Okay, so disputing, just basically sending them a letter, letting them know that the information on the report is incorrect.
Correct. Or another option that you do have is you have an option to say, to try to build up credit. So what if you have other credit cards, you want to use it responsibly. So you want to develop a payment history. So you may want to say, and the things that you would normally pay cash for, you may want to put it on your credit card and then pay that off at the end of the month. So that way you don't get charged interest, but then you start generating a payment history. So if you're able to develop a payment history of you're paying things on time without any latenesses, gradually over time, that will help make your credit score get better.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right. So these are some tips. And I'm not saying this just because I'm a banker, but first, don't ignore loans, right? If you have a loan or if you have a payment that, especially with this hard time that we're going through, don't just say, I'm not going to pay. Don't take it for granted. You have to contact the bank or whoever you have the loan with. And if you're having trouble, you can ask for forgiveness. You can ask for a deferment. There's a lot of things that you can do. But number one thing is don't ignore loans. Two, this is important, set a budget for you and your business. And as business owners, it's important. Sometimes I've seen over the years that business owners will go, will put their all into the business, and they oftentimes will neglect their personal budget and their personal expenses and their personal responsibilities. So I implore you, please make sure you set a budget for yourself and your business. Research forgiveness options when needed. Sign up for automatic payments. A lot of times the creditor will give you a discount if you say, okay, well, you could deduct the money from my checking account each month. It's a way that that is something that they do. So if you're not taking advantage of it, just ask if the creditor does that, have that feature. Make extra payments whenever you can. This is in regards to loans now. And specify how you want those payments applied. It's very important that if you're making additional payments and you want it to be applied to a principal balance, you let the creditor or the lender know that, okay, this extra payment I'm making, I want it to go to my principal balance. And be aware of interest rates.
But Greg, can you go back for the next one? When you made, I think that's an important point. When you're talking about when you make extra payments, specify how you want it to be applied. Because can you explain how that impacts your balance by having it applied to the principal or just have it pay, applied to the regular payment?
Yeah. So if it's not applied correctly to the principal, then and theoretically, it could, not theoretically, but it makes your length of the time of whatever the loan is a little longer. So you want to get things paid down as quickly as you can. So when you make additional payments to, say, a principal balance, it accelerates, it takes away how much you owe at a faster rate. So it accelerates how quickly you can pay off that loan, if that makes sense.
And at the end of the day, you're paying less interest because the principal is lower.
Correct. Correct. And be aware of your interest rates. It's very important. It's very important that you're aware of, how much you're getting charged. And it's also important to know like what the industry standard is. So typical example, sometimes these store department credit cards, the interest rate is so high, it can be 27, 28%. And if you get a credit card from your bank or your credit union, you could get maybe 16, 10% in interest. Or if you have a high interest rate on a credit card and it's at 25%, you may be able to get a personal loan to consolidate some of your credit card balances for a lower rate of maybe like 7, 8%. Which translates into a lower monthly payment for you. And it helps you, again, accelerate how quickly you could pay off whatever loan that you have. Okay? I think we need to have like a thumbs up for those who have cameras. Let me know when we could. So these right now, you're looking at some amounts. If you O1 cards, all right. It says keep balances low on credit cards and other revolving credit. High outstanding debt can affect your credit score. Pay off debts rather than moving it around. The most effective way to improve your credit score in this area is by paying down your revolving credit. Revolving credit would be like credit cards, anything that has short term. It says, in fact, owing the same amount but having fewer open accounts may lower your score. It says, don't close unused credit cards as a short-term strategy to raise your score. So now, when in regards to credit, sometimes it's one of those things where, you know, kind of like how you used to have tips from, you know, the old wise fables and tales and stuff like that. You'll hear a lot of wacky ideas and people tell you a lot of different things. Well, everybody's a credit expert and they tell you things that don't necessarily make sense. Or sometimes what they're telling you is just as good advice, but it doesn't apply to you and your situation at the time that you may be in, all right? So don't open a number of new credit cards that you don't need, just increase your available credit. This approach could backfire and actually lower your credit score. There's a method called the debt snowball versus the debt avalanche. Like how that spun around. And with the debt snowball versus the debt avalanche, some people like to build up, and if they have something that's a high interest rate with a high balance, what they may do, what they look forward to is just to try to pay that one big thing off and then move on from there. Some other people like to get debt down by paying things that have low interest rate that you may have a lot of. And the reason why they do that is because it gives a sense of accomplishment to say like, okay, I'm handling these tasks are getting done quickly and efficiently in a timely manner. And it's a personal reward. So both methods are good. You have to choose what method is best for you. And you have to know your personality. What do you prefer? Do you like small victories or do you like to get that one big victory? But it doesn't matter what you do, you should choose one of these techniques.
Hi, I have a question.
Sure.
I raised my hand. It was from the previous slide.
Okay.
Before that one. It was, oh goodness. Oh man, I think I forgot my question. Oh boy. When it comes to, because I know I think it's frowned upon to like close your oldest credit card. That's right. When it comes to not using your credit card at all, eventually, I think it takes a few years for it to just like close out on its own. Would that impact your credit score? Because it's not like you closed it. It's like the banks closed it. One example of that is like I had a Macy's card, and I don't even shop at Macy's. I had a thing, I didn't want to use it, but I didn't want to close at the same time. But eventually it closed, but I wasn't sure if like that impacts your credit score as well.
Well, you know, again, it's one of those things like with everybody's scenario is just a little different. So you have a couple of trade lines or the credit cards that you have that you are able to use. But you just want to make sure that you don't just retreat and you just don't say, oh, I'm not using any credit. You want to actively try to do things to generate and to build a credit history so that you can show that you have a history of paying things back. So you would just have to review which cards you have. Now, if you have 18 cards, then you may not need to have that Macy's card still open. If you have another card with a good trade line or trade history. But if you only have 2 or 3 cards, then you may want to keep it open just to, and maybe purchase something every now and then just to show that you've been paying it, using it, and paying it back. Okay. No matter what you do, it's important that you're just responsible with whatever approach you take.
All right, well, thank you.
No problem. All right. Which kind of leads me into, you know, managing your finances and your impulses. And this is all connected to business lending because you as a primary, the first C of business lending is the character, right? So this is just something that I came across. And I think it's apropos to what we're talking about. It says, not that I'm speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content.
Very
It's
good.
important. It's very important that we don't, we as human beings, sometimes we always want to have the newest, shiniest things, and we work hard, so you should treat yourself. But we always have to examine, like, is this necessary? Do I sacrifice short-term goals, short-term desires for long-term goals, right? So it's important that we manage our finance and our impulses in regards to what we're doing. All right. So we just talked about the 5 C's of credit. We're talking about the 5 C's of credit. So we just went over character, and we discussed how, this is like a little recap. It discussed how, and if you want to take notes, you can take notes. We discussed how your credit banks look at that. Since we don't know you, we didn't go to elementary school, junior high school, and high school with you, and we don't live next door to you, we don't have a good idea of your true character. So banks tend to use your credit score as a determination to see, to measure your trustworthiness and your reliability to borrow. The next couple of slides we're going to go over are going to speak to the next 3 points. 2 is capacity. This considers your level of cash flow and measures your ability to repay your debt obligations. Banks and lenders are looking to see if potential borrowers have enough cash to pay back what they borrow. We're going to talk about capital. Banks and lenders look at your level of debt and use your capital as a measure of your leverage. The more equity you have, the lower your leverage, which is a positive thing. All right, so we're going to get into this. What do you guys see here? You see it? What is that? I'll answer. It's a castle. All right. And I want you to think about your business as your kingdom. What you want to do is your kingdom. Your business is your kingdom. Your business is your empire. And your ultimate goal is to try to expand your empire and to expand the reach of your kingdom, right? So you having a kingdom, you have 3 options. And this is very relevant for today in the climate that we're in. You have 3 options. You could figure out ways to be successful, and you could go out and you could try to expand your business, or you could try to grow your business, or you could raise up the drawbridge and just try to get by and weather the storm. Excuse me. Or you could let the environment and the external pressures that you're facing in this COVID time and with the downturn in the economy, it could come in and it could ransack your business, and it could ransack you, right? So it's important that you look at this as your business is your kingdom. And we're going to go over some things that are important that you have to do in order to maintain a healthy kingdom, in order for you to really succeed, because that's what we're here to talk about tonight, succeeding. So owners need to find ways to control their expenses. I'll say this again. Owners need to find ways to control their expenses, reduce their inventory, and offer solutions for customers who are also feeling the pressure. So it doesn't matter what your business is. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You need to find ways to work on these areas. All right. So when you look at that, there's an old additive, and it reigns true. And the additive goes, cash is king. And you may be saying, how is this connected to my business? With your business, you need to try to ensure, and you need to try to make sure that you have a steady cash flow with your business. And it says cash flow is king, and a healthy cash flow is a key ingredient to surviving an economic slowdown. Therefore, you should scrutinize all of your margins, including payroll, marketing, rent, and supplies, plus actively pursue your accounts receivables. Basically, that means if there's someone out there who owes you money, you need to try to do a good job at collecting on those receivables. It says prepare 12 months best, realistic, and worst case cash flow scenarios. To be safe, assume a 10 to 20% decline in revenues and identify what changes you might have to make and when you should see a drop in your monthly revenue. Be sure to build in any recurring sales or seasonal trends. Okay, so you want to make sure that your business is liquid. You want to make sure you're monitoring your expenses. So you can even make money by selling or offering your services. That's one way you can make money. You could also make money by saving. Places where, trimming the fat, places where that you may have been overpaying, just cutting down and trying to just find ways to increase your cash flow for your business. Because when you come to a lender, banks are very interested in seeing if your business is liquid, if you have enough funds, or how's your cash flow working out. All right. Any questions on that? All right, let's go. I would say that is maintain cash liquidity, right? And these are some of these are economic terms, but I just want to make it very plain so everybody can understand. You just want to build up a cash reserve to ensure liquidity by converting or having the ability to quickly convert a percentage of your company's assets into cash. Liquid assets include most stocks, money market instruments, and government bonds. Everybody's not going to be at this level right now, but you could do it in the level that you're at. Any questions on that?
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the cash flow and a cash reserve?
Between the cash flow. So that the cash flow is more so what's flowing into the business, what's going out. You have some businesses that are cash heavy. So like say if you had a pizzeria, at one time, probably before the pandemic, you had a lot of people coming in with cash. You had a lot of people going in. So you want to make sure that your cash is flowing. Whereas cash reserves is how much money your business is going to have to kind of weather the storm. So we see this in the animal kingdom. You see squirrels, they accumulate a bunch of acorns and different things like that, that when it gets time of famine, that they have something that they could get to help them get through the storm. And this is important, and it's crucial for businesses to make sure they have cash and reserves, because that's what will get you through some of the tough times. And that is what will help you. If you're able to manage your cash flow and your cash reserves, that is what will help you weather the storm that we're facing right now. I have personally seen it in 08, 09, 010. I've seen businesses who were able to get through the downturn with the mortgage industry that hit us, and they were able to come out on top because they just made it through, and then they were at a stronger position they were poised for growth after that.
So how much cash reserve should a business keep?
Well, it really depends on the business. It depends on your industry. I would say that there's some publications that you could go to, or you could develop a network of, speak to other people in your industry and just try to find out what's a good number that I should have in reserves. Because depending on the industry and depending on the business, like say if you're a real estate agent, you may not need to have a lot of cash reserves because your primary business is, you're going out, you're interviewing people. So you're not like say a clothing store who needs to have money for monthly rent, for electricity, to pay the employees. So it really depends on the type of business. A lot of times the ultimate indicator is if your account is in the negative or the positive at the end of the month, or if it's coming dangerously close to being negative, then you know that you have cash flow. You have a cash flow problem that you need to work on.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Good question. So I just want to talk about, I can't take it for granted that everybody understands all the banking products that are out there. So I just want to talk about, there's a saying that said, money doesn't grow on trees, but it does grow in the savings accounts, right? So a checking account is for everyday, usually purchases that everyday purchases and things that you have to do in connection to your business. Your savings account for your business is more so long-term money saving storage. So what you should be trying to condition yourself to is to balance your checkbook. So where if you have any extras that you could put it into reserves into your business savings so that you could earn a little interest and that you could also plainly identify that, okay, my business now has XYZ amount in reserve because it's in your savings. All your bills have been accounted for the month. So whatever's left over now, kind of like how we operate on a personal level, whatever's left over is going to be extra your reserves. There's a business money market account that you could get. There's low risk certificates of deposits, and something that I think all business owners should, and we're not getting into that now, but all business owners should condition themselves as you save money for the business, as you save money for you, you also need to try to save money put aside a little bit of money, condition yourself to put aside a little money for your retirement. It's just a good practice that if you are able to do it, I would encourage you to do it. So this guy is real shaky right now, and this is going to your debt to income ratio, right? So I just want to show you this. There's something called, this one is just saying use credit cushion. So you see this guy, he's like walking on a tightrope and he's at a, dangerous spot. So he wants to have something there to cover him if he falls. And this is saying, be prepared for any contingencies by applying for a revolving line of credit to hedge against declining revenue. Use it to cover a wide range of business building needs, from purchasing inventory to meeting short-term cash flow requirements. In many cases, you'll have the flexibility to make interest-only payments that could keep your payments lower when possibly needed most. Even if you never use it, having easy access to additional cash gives you added peace of mind. What does this translate to in the real world? This translates to things like a business credit card. It translates to things like a business line of credit. It translates to things like a business credit line. These are things that you are able to use to help you manage your cash flow and to make you manage the business. So if you have a little wiggle room and you use it responsibly, it's a great tool, and it gives you a good cushion so you can weather the hard times. Because just like that gentleman who was balancing on the bull, he has had a balancing act, and it's a delicate balancing act between your debt to your income. And there's something called a debt to income ratio, and you always want to be mindful of your debt to income ratio. And you also want to be mindful that you use credit wisely and responsibly. The reason why we have green lights, red lights, and yellow lights is because we found that you need to tell people when to go, and you need to prevent people from hurting themselves. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that you have to use your credit wisely. You have to use your credit wisely, because if you don't use it wisely, and it literally is like walking a tightrope sometimes, you can end yourself up in jeopardy. All right? We're good? All right. So we talked about some of the 5 C's of credit. So we talked about character, which was the credit. We talked about the capacity. We talked about the capital, right? How to make sure you're not over leveraged or under leveraged. If you're over leveraged or under leveraged, you could fall, right? I want to be very clear. You could fall. And conditions, this is something very important. So conditions, banks and lenders want to understand the current conditions of the market, industry in which a business operates, economic environment, how the borrower intends to use the money, interest rates, and the size of the loan. They also want to know how a borrower plans on using the funds from a loan and how the conditions could impact that use. So this is just something I just want you to understand. I want to explain something that's going on in the industry so that you're prepared no matter what bank you go to. Everything I'm saying applies to all banks across the board. They're all looking at these things. So when it comes to the climate, which if we go back to the last slide, conditions, banks and lenders want to understand the current conditions of the market, right? So this is just a quick, some info I got from some place I get analysis from, information from. So this is a Census Bureau for small businesses, right? It says, in this COVID environment, the top performing industries are beer, wine, and liquor stores, food and vegetable manufacturers, grocery stores, home center and hardware stores, internet, TV, and mail order retailers, janitorial services, paper product manufacturers, pet and animal food manufacturers, snack food manufacturers, soap and toilet preparation manufacturers. So even as I went down the list and even as you read the list, there's some people or some industries on here that you would say, you're kind of like, okay, yeah, that makes sense with everything that's going on in this COVID environment. And I'm going to go over some people that are hardest hit industries: amusement parks, auto dealerships, rental leasing, bars and nightclubs, caterers, clothing stores, hotels and motels, movie theaters, oil and gas producers, performing arts groups. These are some people who are hardest hit during this economy. And I want to encourage you business owners, in case you have one of these industries that are on either side, you could still make money and you could still be successful even in this environment. You just have to make sure that you're relevant, and you have to make sure you're thinking outside of the box. So how does it connect to the industry right now? So a lot of banks, what they're doing is they're looking at they're asking for your financials. They're asking for not just your financials, but they're doing write-ups on the executive team or the management of the company. So they want to know who you are. They want to know what's your plan. They want to know how are you adapting to everything that's going on. A lot of banks are now asking for quarter one, along with projections. They want projections to be realistic. What happened is in the industry as a whole, I think we kind of got a little carried away with overvaluations of companies or being overly optimistic. So especially in a time like this, banks are looking to make sure that projections and estimates are realistic. So you have a lot of companies now who are operating at half capacity. So your projections and really matter, because you may have a projection where you have a rosy outlook for the rest of 2020 or for 2021. But realistically, how are you going to have a rosy outlook where, if you say, for instance, you're a pizzeria and the pizzeria is now at 50% seating capacity? Your valuations can't be similar to what it was in 2019 and 2018 and 2017 because the climate has changed. So how are you making the difference? So we're looking for executives, banks are looking for executive summaries. They're looking for how are you changing? So now take that same pizzeria. Maybe they're by a school, and maybe they're by a school, or maybe they're by office buildings. And instead of having people come to them, which was their normal bread and butter, maybe they're doing things like they shifted their focus to sending takeouts to the businesses, or they worked out an arrangement with a catering hall or someone who delivers food to the hospitals to say, okay, well, we could offer you our pizza or we could offer you X, Y, and Z items that we have at a lower cost. You have to come up with a plan. You have to show, and you have to be able to show yourself that you're different from the other people who are in your industry. You have to be able to show that I'm able to do something different that they're not doing. And that's what's giving me a competitive edge in business right now. So I could do better. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any questions on that? All right. So this is someone, quote by someone who I have a tremendous amount of respect for. His name is Warren Buffett. And it says, to be successful in business and investing, you've got to have skin in the game, a stake in the company. And this is Warren Buffett, right? And what does that mean for us as business owners? How does that translate for us? So banks want to see that you have some skin in the game if you're taking out a loan with them. So a lot of times they'll ask you to prepare 2 to 3 years of personal and business tax returns. They ask you to be prepared by filling out a personal financial statement, and they ask you to identify collateral that could be pledged, if applicable. If you have accounts receivables, they're asking you for these items. So these are some of the items that they're asking for: 2 to 3 years personal and business tax returns, a personal financial statement, and what that is just it basically lists all your assets. It basically lists all your debts, basically lists all your investments. It has a financial snapshot of you as the business owner. And they also want to know, do you have anything that you can put up for collateral? Are you signing to personally guarantee this loan? If this business loan doesn't work out, are you going to be personally guaranteed? Are you personally guaranteed that you will pay whatever the loan was? So what happened before in the past, before banks really had the personal guarantor option, what some people would do is would get business loans, and the business would do good or the business would do bad. But what would happen sometimes when the business did bad is the people would just say, okay, well, that was the business problem. It's not my problem. And some people would just either ignore just close the business. Some people would used to close the business and start up a new business and look to get another loan. So banks implemented this personal guarantee option to say, okay, well, if this business goes under, or if this business is not able to pay the loan, do you have skin in the game? Are you willing to say, I'm going to personally guarantee whatever I borrow from the bank?
Well, I have a question, Greg. So we always talk.
Okay. We have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. So we talk about the different legal structures of business. Most often we talk about, we encourage them to become a S corp, C corp, or to protect their personal assets separate their personal assets from their business assets. And so, the bank still requires a personal financial statement, even if the legal structure of a business might be an LLC or S corp?
Yes. So they do. Banks, both, typically every commercial or credit union, they still want to see what the personal history is of the people who are the principals for the loan.
Okay, regardless of how long they've been in business.
Because there's some points that there are times when it may not be as necessary, and there's, depending on if the business is able to show that the business is able to repay on their own, there are different options, and every bank does it a little differently. So there's not, I don't have one generic answer I could give you. It really applies to and depends on the situation.
Okay.
Yeah. Because sometimes the corporate structure changes. Depending on the business entity, the corporate structure should change. So it would not be necessarily fair to hold someone accountable if they no longer have any connection to that business.
Okay. Well, doesn't the financial statement with the personal net worth, doesn't that show how much value or how much ownership the person has in the company, you still need the personal financial statement in addition to that?
Yes, typically those banks would want the personal financial statement in addition to that, just to see what the health of the, or they call the global cash flow of the person, the principals who are applying for the loan.
Okay.
Yeah. Because a person could be, they could, many people have multiple businesses, and one business may be great, but you may find that this person is over leveraged in other areas. So that's why they want to get a snapshot of, I mean, if you're just Jeff Bezos, chances are no one's really asking you for additional, information, but, it is important that banks scrutinize all the principles in connection to it.
So they're just making sure you're not taking from Peter to pay Paul, basically.
Correct. Yeah. And they want to see that in worst case scenario, if something happened, would you be able to pay? Would you be able to pay off and really guarantee the loan,
Okay.
So we went over the 5 C's. We went over character, and please write this down because these things are applicable to whatever bank you go to. The credit, we went over the capacity, we went over the capital, we went over the conditions, we went over the collateral. Oh, we're going to talk about the collateral. Oh yeah, we kind of went over the collateral. But it says, by knowing the 5 C's of credit, you can prepare for what is needed during the approval process of a loan. It is important to know how banks and lenders will use these during the application and approval process. So in regards to collateral, sometimes what will happen is banks will use actually equipment. If you have equipment, they could use that as a collateral to help them, make them inclined to do the loan. Now, it depends on the bank. Every bank has an option. They could maybe say, I'll use 80% of whatever the collateral is, or some banks will say, will just outright say, okay, we could use some equipment as collateral, some equipment we can't use. So say for instance, if you have a business and you're making tiny little sprocket, right? Now, if it's a tiny little sprocket that could be used everywhere and in a wide range of manufacturing, then banks may be inclined to say, okay, we could put your equipment up for collateral. Now, if you're making a sprocket and this tiny sprocket is only used for Nassau, then banks will most likely not take that as a collateral, because if you default on the loan or the business defaults on the loan, the bank doesn't want to be responsible for trying to get this one little sprocket that is only sold to Nassau, who we don't have contacts with, to sell it to Nassau. But if it's something that can be widely used, then it may be something that a bank is willing to say, okay, you can put this up for collateral. Something else that could be put up for collateral is accounts receivables, money that you owe. There's a lot of different items that banks are able to use collateral. So if you're ever going for a loan, just make sure you have that conversation with your banker, and just let them know that, oh, well, I would be willing to put up X, Y, and Z for collateral if that makes sense for you. Okay? All right. So we're talking about building businesses for success, right? So oftentimes I have found throughout the years, it's not always just getting the money or getting a loan. Sometimes in order to be successful, you could just make some adjustments, you can make some changes, and you may not need a loan, right? So I'm going to go over some things that are important. It's very important, especially in this time that we're in. It's important to have a good team, a good team of people, advisors, right? As a business owner. So on that team of advisors, you want to have your accountant, you want to have possibly a lawyer, you want to have possibly a banker, right? Who you could advise. You probably want to keep your banker up to date on different things that is going on in your business, just in case you ever need a loan. that they kind of have they have an idea and that they have an inkling of your business, and they could maybe offer you tips and solutions to help get you through. You definitely want to have a good relationship with your accountant. In this time frame, accountants are really working overtime, because when business owners are going to get loans, banks are asking for, updated projections. They're asking for updated estimates on different items. They're asking for, tax returns. They're asking for not just a tax return, but they want to make sure you're receiving your accounts receivables. They want to make sure that the nitty gritty of how you do your business, that financially it's able to speak for itself. That way, if you never say a word, if someone looks at your financial sheet, your income sheet, and your balance sheet, they could say, okay, well, this business is healthy, right? So it's important. I'm sorry, I have automatic lights over here. So it's important that you keep your financials current, clean up your financials so that you'll be in a more favorable position to secure credit using accurate and up-to-date financial statements if faced with a crunch. This step will enhance your financial credibility when dealing with your bank. Some business owners have gotten into a bad habit where over the time, the cash is king, right? So some businesses like to make money and not put everything on the books. And, that is not advisable. That's not the best approach. You actually do yourself a disservice oftentimes, especially at a time like this, because your business is really doing better than what it looks like on paper, but we can only substantiate what we see on paper. So you can come to us and say, yeah, well, my business is doing great, but if your bank account doesn't show it, or if your tax returns aren't showing it, then we can only go by what's reportable. So that's why having a good accountant could help you put your financials in a great light. Also, if you have a good accountant, even if you have to spend a little more money, or even if you have to spend a lot more money, a good accountant will be worth its weight in gold, because there's certain tax loopholes they're able to tell you about. There's certain advice that they're able to give you because they've dealt with people in your industry. And when it's time to put a packet together to bring to a bank, if you have a good accountant and they're diligent, you'll be presented in the best light. And I'm not just saying that because my wife's a CPA. I know for a fact, just from being in this industry for over 20 years, having a good accountant who could also be that go-between between you and the bank really makes the bank feel more assured. Whereas if we need something and we say, oh, well, can you give us the last 30 days reports for this? If you have a good accountant, they'll get it to your banker pretty quickly. And it puts you in the best light, right? So now, what I would say, and you guys, they do a great job over there with helping people with business plans, Daphne and everybody. Revisit your business plan. This represents the foundation and roadmap of your company. You worked hard to create it, so to be sure it is still on strategy, you might review it through the eyes of someone about to invest in your business. Then make any modifications that you feel are necessary based on objectivity, the needs of your business, and current economic conditions. You might discover a new target market. So sometimes just taking a step back, going back to those first things, the original plans that you had, and just say, okay, what can I do differently? The thing is, we as business owners, we gotta be thinking. We gotta be thinking about, we have to constantly take a self-assessment and an honest self-assessment on what are we doing good? What are we doing bad? How can we get better? What things do we need to adjust? What things can we tweak? Reevaluate your sales strategy. Not necessarily the same thing as your business plan, right? It says you may find that your best prospects for new sales come from your existing customer base. This approach represents the shortest distance between slow sales and achieving your revenue goals. If you can leverage existing relationships and gain knowledge of your clients' needs, then finding solutions to keep them satisfied should be easier, right? So just think about who you're doing business with. and find out if you could even give discounts. But even with discounts, you have to be careful because you don't want to create a trend. Sometimes once the horses are out, it's hard to get it back. Sometimes you just have to look at how you're approaching, who you're marketing, how are you marketing. There's tons of, we live in an age of social media, and your marketing budget, the way you started your marketing budget and the things you spent that marketing budget on 10 years ago, 5 years ago, are drastically different now because we have new ways that we're able to get touches to people and to your clients. So just evaluate, am I doing the best thing? All right. Rethink your pricing strategy. I kind of just started tiptoeing into it just a little bit over there. But considering that your products and inventory must move to generate cash flow, this is important. I'm going to say it again. Consider that your products and inventory must move to generate cash flow. Review your pricing strategies and liquidate old or excessive inventory. Bundling products and providing deals may be required to attract customers. Resist the urge to cut your prices. You might sell more products, but that will cut your margins and most likely dilute your brand at the same time. Besides, the next time customers buy from you, they might expect similar discounts. So again, this is all going back to generating cash flow. If you have inventory that's just sitting there, it's not helping your bottom line for your business, but you have to do it responsibly, okay? Continue to market your business. And it says marketing is usually among the first casualties in uncertain economic times. We somewhat touched on this. We suggest you think hard before cutting or eliminating these costs at a time when your business may need to be prospecting for new customers. It is important to get the word out, certainly at a time when many of your competitors could be doing the exact opposite. If cost is an issue, consider less costly media such as email, public relations, and blogs to build brand recognition and awareness. Aim for long-term contracts. If your business is someone that does contracts, ask your satisfied customers how you can increase the business you do with them. You might propose a discount to customers who agree to sign a long-term contract or are willing to pay cash up front for contracted products or services. The notion of receiving cash up front is attractive because it feeds your cash flow and can make it easier to receive favorable financing from a bank. If you are willing to trade some income for some security, then both parties win. And I can assure you that as a business owner, the way you are looking for ways to save money professionally and personally, the people who you do business with are looking for ways to do the same thing. It makes sense. It's a way that you're able to increase your cash flow, and it's a way that helps you weather the storm that we're in. Monitor customer behaviors. And this is something that you have to really pay close attention to. Put your psychology hat on and look for changes in customer behaviors. Spending less time putting purchases or projects on hold, or not paying bills on their regular schedule could be warning signs of cash flow problems. So if you see that people who you're doing business with are now taking longer to make new orders, or you need to be, this needs to be something that you have to pay close attention to. Consider reaching out to them before they contact you about what the issues are. You can create a strong relationship by being there to help them in their own difficult times. Now, sometimes you will get a long-term customer who will do you the courtesy to say, well, this is my issue and how can we get it lower? But you will have a lot of customers who don't have loyalty to you, and who, if someone else comes along and they can undercut your product or your services or your prices by just the smallest amount, they will leave you. So this is something you have to be on top of. Keeping an eye on the competition. You might gather vital intelligence on what they're doing during a slow economy and be better prepared to respond. If you plan and prepare more effectively than your competition, you could benefit if they can no longer meet their customer needs or keep them satisfied, right? And this is something I touched on earlier, but it's important. Build a team of advisors. Create an advisory council that represents a broad range of expertise from which you can draw advice. Survey your circle of business contacts and recruit attorneys, accountants, owners of business similar to yours, heads of local business groups, and retired executives. Use them for their individual and collective wisdom to brainstorm your issues and offer up potential solutions. So, and this is one more point I want to make. Make your employees part of the solution. Your employees are key stakeholders in the success of your business. When things, I gotta say this in, your employees are key stakeholders in the success of your business. When things get tough, they can be an invaluable resource. Make boosting productivity an action item and reward those employees who make significant contributions to moving the business forward. It is counterproductive to lose your best people during uncertain times. So let them know that they are valued. So if someone is bringing you in business, I'm going to say this, ethically, responsibly, then you try to find ways to encourage them, or try to find ways that, try to pull best-in-class practices from them to find out what are they doing that maybe your other employees are not doing, and maybe try to find a way to integrate what they're doing into what the behaviors of your other employees. So just be mindful of that. These are ways that you're able to succeed. My parting thoughts are, first, tighten up your credit terms with customers. Consider calling them starting 3 to 5 days out for payment status. Also, stay on top of your receivables. Review your collection policy and have procedures in place to manage it, including built-in flags for advance notice of delinquencies as they arise. You might also delay or renegotiate new long-term leases or contracts to exploit any competitive pressure in the marketplace that can lower prices. And finally, don't be skittish about shaking the complacency out of your vendors for more competitive pricing. This is all important. Knowing these points are important for your success, and more than just knowing them, being able to articulate these things to the business banker or the bank when you inquire about a loan are vital important. Because if you are able to communicate these things effectively, then it mitigates the risk or the ideas of risk that the bank may have. We all maybe have had a family member or a friend who maybe have wanted to borrow money, and you just know that if I give them this money, I'm probably not going to see it ever again, or that it may not be used for anything. It's very shaky on if I'm going to get it back. And typically when that happens, if you're faced with that position where you are deciding, you will say, well, what is this used for? These points go to tell the bank what you are planning on using the money for. And not only do they ensure the overall success of your business, but they are good things to manage your growth and to present yourself in the best light to banks. So in my closing, I say this sometimes, but it's a quote that I came across I love. It says, if you can't share money, share knowledge. If you can't share knowledge, share your time. It may help someone pay it forward, because what goes around comes around. So I really encourage you in everything I said. Again, this isn't to get business for Suffolk Federal. All these things apply to whatever bank you go to. Sure, Suffolk Federal is a credit union. We have great rates, and we've been in this local market for some time now, for over 50 years. But these things apply to whatever bank you go to, and at some point, you may need them. So I encourage you again, to keep going, to keep going forward. Don't be worried by what you see around you. Some people may say the sky is falling, but in every down economy, there's always an opportunity for growth. There's always an opportunity to become successful. And I believe that the people that are on this Zoom meeting tonight, and I believe that the people that may see the Zoom meeting after the fact, have potential to succeed And I want to encourage your growth, and I want to encourage you to succeed, because you can succeed and you can win. And that's it.
Thank you, Gregory. That was awesome. That was an awesome presentation. I really appreciate you putting the time and effort into talking to our group today. Does anyone have any questions? We give you a lot of information. Does anything need clarity, or is anyone thinking about starting, thinking about getting a loan?
I mean, that is an option for me. I'm trying to look into grants first because, you know, who doesn't like free money? um, but I'm really also looking into loans. I used to work at a bank, so I was relatively familiar with a lot of the information.
Okay.
So it's a good thing I got a head start on it, so which is good, but definitely a loan is looking like a viable option when it comes to that. So I'm glad I was able to get this information tonight.
Can you share with you? Are you willing to share what type of business that you want to start?
Sure. I'm trying to start a notary business. I know it's very random. I know, but I was looking a lot into like just notary services. I know New York is extremely cheap when it comes to like what they charge notaries, but notaries could actually do several types of businesses. Several types of assignments, because they have to just verify signers. So if there's a loan for, if there's a loan for like a mortgage or any type of loans, like, you know, they need notaries there. There's, you know, pretty good money when it comes to that. Apostille services, mobile notary, remote, like, so there's a ton of services that notaries can do, which could be very profitable, whether you work part-time or full-time. So I already started like my business plan. I know I have to forward my information to Kenya because she told me about this seminar, and so I could sign up for the coaching sessions to make my business plan a little bit, to just clean it up, because it's just basic information as of right now, and I know I need to include more. So one of the things I enjoyed about this was that I really needed to work on the projectiles, and I still need like more research when it comes to it, in terms of like inventory, you know, having the cash reserve is very, very important. I'm like, oh, wrote that down, because if you have inventory, you should have several months saved up just in case. So I thought that was really important aspect, because I definitely did not think about that. So, and it's low cost. So I'm excited. Definitely learning a lot during this journey, but I'm looking forward to it.
And it's good to have built a relationship with the banker. Remember, he said that, hint, hint, hint.
Yes.
Make sure you use contact information, right?
Will do. What, I know it's based out in Suffolk, but where out in Suffolk?
We're I'm located in Islandia. My branch, 1282 Motor Parkway in Islandia. And but we have all over Suffolk.
Okay.
And, you know, we've been in the area for 50 years. And, you know, if you have any questions or advice, no problem. Please let me know, and I'm happy to help you out.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Does anyone else have any questions, comments, thoughts? I did have a question. I wrote it down, but I wrote so many things down, I can't figure out what it is that I wanted to ask. Well, I did want to know if you were willing to share your PowerPoint.
Sorry, that was my dog. I'm so sorry.
I did like the quote that when you had your business is your kingdom, and you want to protect your kingdom. You know, I think that brought things home for a lot.
Can I say something to that? Even with that, you know, I really think it's important that you look at it as your kingdom, because some people and some businesses, you can't look for anybody to bail you out. You know how the old movies, you had the castles and you're waiting for reinforcements. You can't wait for like government to come up with something. You can't wait for your clients just to, just change their mind, and you have to be proactive, because if you plan on waiting for help, the help may come, but it may come too late.
Mhm.
So it's important that you do what's best for your kingdom and don't wait for help from anybody.
Okay. And you made a brief comment about the debt to income ratio. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So basically, it's just a ratio that essentially looks at how much income that you have coming in, and how much income that you have that you owe. So basically, you don't want to have a high ratio for that. You want to be able to say, I have a lot more income coming in than I have going out. And every bank has a different number for that ratio, that they're acceptable. They have acceptable thresholds. Some banks may be 40%, some banks may be 50%. It really depends. And then it also depends on what other items, that's where collateral and other things come into play to help things balance out.
Okay.
May I speak for a second?
Sure.
Can you hear me, Daphne, or folks? Yes? Hi. Mr. Bryan, first of all, I want to apologize I was at another meeting, so I got in late, but I have to tell you, I'm from Suffolk Community College, and I also on and off run my own small business, but I have to tell you, in all of the books I've read and all of the lectures and all, I don't ever remember anybody talking about something you mentioned as a highlight of looking at your customers' payment behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell you, that was just put a light in the dark on that one, because especially not only now, but always, and going forward, that it would be something, was an indicator I was never aware of, that seems to be such a reasonable measure
Mm-hmm.
for what's going on, or if it's delayed or whatever. So I'm going to do some more research on that, but thank you for sharing that. I wish I was here for the whole thing. I learned already, so thank you.
I think Daphne has a recording, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure to mail
Right.
everything. I think Daphne could help you out.
I'll twist her arm. I'll twist her arm to share it
I'll
with.
post it on our website at some point. We'll get
That's
there.
good. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions? No? Well, thank you, Mr. Bryan, for presenting today. We appreciate it. You did a very excellent job. Thank you.
Wait, I
So
have one more question. I'm sorry. While you're here, when it comes to, I guess, the marketing or advertising part of your business plan, how much, I guess, first, when you go into the bank and apply for a loan, like, I know, like, on the physical aspect, make sure you look professional, make sure that you have your finances under control when it comes to your credit score, and make sure you have your business plan. But when it comes to, I guess, the part of the business plan, when it comes to like marketing and advertising, like, what is something that the bank looks for?
In regards to marketing and advertising,
Yes.
the bank really doesn't dig that deep. However, it is important. It is important nowadays, because we just want to know that you have a plan on how are you getting your business, how are you getting your clients. So we're not gonna dig down into the nitty gritty of it, but we want to be able to pull up your website. We want to be able to pull up some social media. We want to be able to pull up some things that show us that it's because marketing is just a representation of your business. So a good banker is going to take time to get to know more about your business and to see if you're presenting something that looks professional, or does it look like a fly-by-night operation where, so even on websites, if you have an executive summary, or if you have detailed or customer, feedback on what you're doing, if you have a certain number of likes, these are things that, if you have a certain amount of views, these are things that are big. So if similar to YouTube incentivizes the people who put things on there. If you have a couple of likes, you're really not going to get anything. But if you start to have millions of likes, then you're an influencer. So your business is generating buzz. So that's a good thing in business. And that makes banks feel comfortable about who you are.
But what if you don't have, this is for me, like I'm completely starting up. So I mean, these are things I'm definitely thinking of when in terms of like website building, branding and things of that nature. So I'm curious that like if I'm coming into the bank, this is my business plan. But I don't have, the website yet. I don't have my branding yet. I don't have inventory yet. I don't have a lot of these things yet. Like, does that lower the chances of, I guess, securing a loan, or if they kind of?
It doesn't lower the chances, but I'll say this: don't let that hold you back, because you may have a leg up over everybody on this call right now, because there's so much that has changed, and there's so much technologies. Even I'm not as young as I used to be, but I'm this aspects of technology that I'm embracing now that you may take for granted. So there's a lot of avenues that we all could capitalize on to be successful in our marketing. So it's not just necessarily having a big budget or having shirts made up with your name on it. That's not as important as, are you generating business? Are you generating a buzz? And there are ways that you are able to do that have just changed and are continuously changing throughout the years.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you so much.
So when you're looking at a loan package, how many years should the business be in operation before your institution would look at them seriously for a loan?
The industry standard right now, most banks will do 2 to 3 years to be in business before they give a loan. So you always want to be preparing yourself for when you get to that point. Some banks will give you, even before that time frame, will allow you to get like a business credit card. And the business credit card you're able to use for the short-term financing needs. Excuse me, you're able to use that for the short-term financing needs. And that can help get you through kind of like that little credit cushion while you're in that phase of, am I making that, while you're in that phase. Something that the young lady said that I would encourage everybody, what Dr. Gordon does excellent, and what they do well over there is they do good at helping people fill out business plans. And they also have a lot of connection to some grant money. They also have a lot of connections to some responsible micro lenders that you're able to look into. Mm-hmm. And there's even some programs that are just tailor-made for women in the business world that you're able to take advantage of. So there's a lot of options, but if you don't seek and knock, you're not going to find it. So you have to go out there and you have to seek, you have to knock, because there's tons of information that's just readily that's available to you to help your business grow.
I do have a question. Hi, I wanted to know, would it be an issue to apply for a loan if your business model is going to be strictly online versus a brick and mortar store? Would that be a hindrance when you're going into the bank?
No, you just have to be able to prove and show what your business is, and that's not a problem. The online businesses are great, especially nowadays, because that really helps with your cash flow, because you're not paying for a brick and mortar building, you're not paying all expenses, you're not paying all the overhead to keep the lights on. So it is something that is good, and that could help you with your cash flow for the business.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
So how do you view micro lenders? Like, how does your institution, do you look at them as competition? Do you look at them as they complement you with your services?
I look at it as a compliment. Mm-hmm. So micro lenders are great when you have the right micro lender, right? So it's important to make sure you choose the right micro lender. There's some micro lenders who, if you don't pay them one time, will break your legs when you come out of work.
Ooh, we don't want those. Well, let's micro lenders are not-for-profit organizations that lend money. So usually governments will give them a grant,
Yeah,
money to small businesses
Right.
because they know that banks want you to be in business for 2 to 3 years, but if you're just starting out, you might need some capital. So micro lenders are there to lend you money. You still have to meet certain criteria. It's not free money,
yeah,
but it gives you injection of funds for the first 2 to 3 years of your business before you can go to a traditional lending institution.
yeah. They complement us, and I've had many clients and members over the years who have started out with micro loans, and it put them on sure footing, so that when they were able to get a loan, their financials and everything were great, and that we were able to help get them to the next level. So micro lenders are great. I think it's important that you go to Suffolk, go see you guys, because you guys are doing a really good job at people who you work with. And, all micro lenders are not the same. They all don't have the same criteria. So it's important that you choose someone that will be the best fit for you, whose payment terms will be the best fit for you. Is very, 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 very important.
Right, right. It's best to identify a micro lender whose primary mission is the economic development of the community, right? Because they want businesses in the community that's successful, because those businesses pay into the tax base, and those businesses also create jobs,
Correct.
right? And so it creates a healthier environment. So that's a key piece that you need to look for when you look at micro lenders.
Right.
That was their whole purpose. That's their original intention anyway, because they know these small businesses can't get traditional lending from traditional loans in the first years of operation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other question? No?
The microloan,
Okay, we hear
the
you.
microloan is like, okay, I want to start with the home care services in the community. But if I don't have collateral, I need a startup loan, say about $50,000-$75,000. What are the criteria for that, to get that loan?
How much did you say you needed?
Well, I have to rent, I have to get equipment and these things. And then about 75,000, 50 the most.
Yeah. So one of the things Mr. Bryan said was that when you start a business, you have to have some skin in the game, right? So if you need,
What?
they say when you have your own business, the banks like to see that you have put some of your own money into the operation, right? So if you
Yes.
need $75,000 to start your business, what percentage of that 75,000 is going to come out of your money? Like you
So
can't.
the 75,000 is going to be like about 20,000,
So you're going to put up 20,000 of your own money.
the most, or the least 15,000, 20,000.
So do you still need 75,000 after you put in your 20, or you need 55,000 after you put in your 20?
Well, I have to work on that.
Right. See, and no,
But right now I am in the entrepreneurial class, and I will have to get all these things and see what I have, what I could get from my family. You understand? And then what I have to get if I have to rent or whatever, I would then I would be able to make a proper decision.
right. So one of the things is a kind of a giveaway for some people, and you have to be aware of this. Like when some people ask you questions about your business, you got to be able to say it, boom, 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 boom. Not like, oh, I don't know, because when you say it, that means you already thought about it, you already planned it out. So it's just.
I already went to the Suffolk County and get the
Well, no, I'm not talking about you specifically, but I'm just saying, just in general, when people ask you questions, especially a banker, because not only they listen to what you're saying, they listen to how you say it. Because now,
that's a calculation I have to do.
right.
If I want to, I have to give basic training to the people that is going out in the home care and to give care in the home. I would have to have furniture. Not really that much furniture. I would have to have stationery.
Mm-hmm. So you'll work all that out when you're, because she's in our 60-hour training class.
Yeah.
You're working that all out now as you're starting to develop your strategy and you're developing your plan. So in December, once you finish the class, you have your business plan, then you can talk a little bit, clearer about what you need, because you've worked all that throughout already.
On the meantime, I have to get licensing. I have to get my own this, so that's the next thing. But that has nothing to do with the money that I would need. Because when I work out a budget, I have to look for somewhere to rent and what rent would cost, and then make the budget.
Right. And so once you pull all that together, then you'll be in a position to know how much money you need.
Yeah.
And figure out where is the best place to get it. Okay.
But I was just putting like about the basic 75,000.
Okay. Very good. Great. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
I have another question. On average, how long does it usually take someone to pay back their business loans, or it all depends on how well they're doing with their business?
So it depends on the terms and conditions that you sign up for, but it's made very clear right before you could sign up for the loan, and even in the beginning of the process. So you'll pick your terms. So sometimes there's loans where it's a loan where it's a fixed time frame, and your payments are amortized over, like, say, a 5-year time frame, or whatever the time frame you agree upon. Or sometimes there's something opened up, like a business line of credit, where you have access to working capital, and that goes sometimes for 10 years, sometimes that goes for every year, but some banks will require like a cleanup or a review every year to make sure that they're going to extend it to you again for the next year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is great. A lot of information being exchanged tonight.
Will the presentation be available for us to look over and review again if we still have any more questions?
Sure. Well, I'm going to post the video on the Entrepreneur Assistance Center's website, and then you can review it at your leisure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. I think you have a question in the chat. What was the question?
I think someone said, thank you for the presentation.
Oh, okay.
It was my pleasure, ladies and David. Everybody who was here, it was my pleasure.
Thank you again.
You guys really inspire me. I'm inspired by business owners, and I'm inspired by what you guys do. Don't be fearful. Keep going. You could overcome any obstacle if you have a well thought out plan.
Agreed. Well, thank you again, Greg or Mr. Bryan, for your great presentation. Rebecca got a hand clap. We got some hand claps in there. I just want to let everybody know, well, thank you all for participating. And I just want to let you know, starting November 7th, we're going to have a strengthening your marketing strategy during the COVID era. So we're going to have a series of marketing workshops. That's Saturday mornings from 9 to 10. And we're going to cover everything about marketing, social media, branding, everything for the 4 weeks. So we'll send out an email, look for our email.
Is it only on Saturdays?
Well, the marketing ones are Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock.
That's pertaining to the EAC classes that we're doing.
Well, right. So we have an entrepreneur training program going on Monday and Wednesday nights.
Yes.
And so those nights we're not available to do webinars. So and the other nights we had other things going on as well. So to have 4 consecutive weeks, we figured we do it Saturday morning. We do it early in the morning, 9 to 10, for 4 weeks, and we'll see how that goes. And we're still open to do other things as well. So, but that's what we have going on now. And for our community members that are bilingual, on Monday nights at 6 o'clock, we're doing the same marketing workshop series, but we're doing it in Spanish.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll share. So if you know anyone who they might be bilingual, but they might feel a little bit more comfortable learning in Spanish, and there's a whole community of people who just speak Spanish, and they're not getting the benefit of these type of workshops.
Right.
So November 2nd, we're having the workshop on understanding your financial statements. And that's in Spanish. And then after that, we'll have at least 4 more workshops in marketing that's going to be offered in Spanish. But those are the same workshops that's going to be held on Saturdays in English. All right, so
And these will be Zoom classes? Or
They'll be-
Zoom meetings?
everything will be on Zoom.
Great. Thank you.
So since you're on our list and you're on our mailing list now, you're going to get emails updating you about our workshop. So we received the funds from Empire State Development to help businesses work their way through COVID. And so this is why we're labeled as the COVID-19 webinar series, because we're trying to cover as much information as possible to help businesses navigate their way through COVID. And so this is our effort. So we're going to be doing webinars throughout the month through the end of the year. So if there's something that you think of that you might want to learn more about, let us know. You know, we'll find an expert to talk about it, and we'll do a webinar on it. We're pretty open. We get feedback from you as to what you like to learn, and then we'll try to make it happen. Okay.
Sounds great.
So feel free to reach out to us if you have any suggestions or comments. Okay. Or even if you want to see something again. You know, we've done some really good workshops. And so matter of fact, I think we have a workshop on the 19th, November 19th, where we bring in all our EAP clients and they just start talking about their strategy. We have bringing all our EAP clients and we bring in all our counselors and we have brainstorming sessions, you know, and businesses talk about what are some of the challenges that they're facing during COVID, and we'll give feedback or suggestions, or business will talk about, you know, what they did that was successful, right? Because there might be something in the restaurant industry that they're doing well that can help you, you know, in your online business, right? And there's something that you probably would never thought of because you're in totally different industries and you would have never had a conversation with somebody in the industry. So I've seen that a lot. And a lot of times, you know, you might come together, you might form little strategic partnerships, right? So there are a lot of opportunities. And you put a lot of great minds together, you be creative, and you can come up with anything. And so that's what we're doing on November 19th. That's like a networking session. So all are welcome, okay? And we'll send out literature about emails about that too. I know you're probably getting tons of emails from us, and we're sorry. But we're trying to just make sure everybody gets as much information as possible. And I'm hoping everybody reads them because there's so many. So if no one has any comments, thoughts, I'd like to thank you again for coming, and hopefully we'll get to see you on the 7th when we start our marketing webinar. That's not this Saturday, but the Saturday after. Okay. Thank you so much, and hoping everyone have a good night.
Good night, guys. Thank you again.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.